In the frozen lands of the north, 3 Vikings, swift of foot, strong of arm, and stout of heart, lived peacefully with their families. But one night, they find themselves abducted by sinister forces. Now, they're on a journey through time and space, doing battle with strange creatures and overcoming all manner of obstacles. Will they be able to escape? Will they be able to return home to their wives and children? Or will they be lost forever? The Lost Vikings is a platforming and puzzle game where you control 3 warriors who are traveling through strange and unusual environments in their quest to return home. At the start of the game, they've been kidnapped by an alien overlord, and the levels that you'll have to explore are based on all sorts of fanciful times, places, and even planets. Now, at the beginning, when I said that Lost Vikings is a platformer puzzle game, you probably intuitively guessed what that meant. And even now, just looking at the gameplay, you can probably assume that, okay, yes, this is a platformer where you run around and solve puzzles. But what makes Lost Vikings interesting is that it has complications that are not obvious at first glance. For starters, when you're playing a level, you actually control 3 different characters: Eric the Swift, Balog the Fierce, and Olaf the Stout. And you'll switch between these 3 different characters as you play. Each level will require you to get all 3 of them to the exit in order to proceed. Now, on top of controlling 3 different characters, each of the individual Vikings has a specialization. For instance, Eric can run faster and jump higher than the other 2, while Balog can shoot an arrow or use his sword to defeat enemies. And finally, Olaf can use his shield to protect himself from projectiles and enemies. But here's where things get complicated, and this is what also makes Lost Vikings so distinctive, that each of the specializations I just listed off are unique to the individual Vikings, and are not utilized by the other Vikings. So, when I mentioned that Eric could run and jump, well, he is the only Viking among the 3 that can run and jump. Neither of the other 2 Vikings can do any traditional platforming beyond climbing up ladders or falling off of ledges. And these restrictions extend to all of the characters, so neither Eric nor Olaf can fight enemies, and neither Eric nor Balog can protect themselves. And at this point, it might become a little clearer what the actual puzzle element of Lost Vikings is all about. This is not a game where the levels are filled with a bunch of different puzzles that need to be solved. It's that the levels themselves are the puzzle. In the end, the game becomes this really fascinating mix of exploration and problem solving. That the recurring challenge that you'll face is that you'll come to an area where only one of your Vikings can progress, so you'll need to look around and come up with a solution so that the other 2 can move on as well. And this means that Lost Vikings becomes a very unorthodox platforming game, where you can't just quickly run to the exit as fast as possible, but where you actually have to use some pattern recognition to look around and see which of your Viking's skills is suited to which situation. Now, while I would praise Lost Vikings level design, I should be clear that it is not an easy game to play. That there are some lessons you can only learn through experimentation. Also, a big part of the gameplay revolves around finding items that are hidden through the level and using them to overcome obstacles, such as locked doors or security fields. But if you mess up, perhaps because you used the item too soon or in the wrong place, because you either didn't know what it was or didn't know where to use it, well, guess what? You're kind of screwed, because the level at that point is unwinnable. and this is not information that is communicated to the player. Lost Vikings is one of those games where, due to all of its complexities, you can lose and not even be aware of it. In the end, I would give Lost Vikings 3 out of 4 stars. It is a fascinating, if unconventional, platforming and puzzle game. I would recommend it to anybody who's tired of traditional platformers and maybe looking for something a little more challenging and non-linear. Alright, thanks for listening. Till next time, when I see you in Valhalla.